I really don't want to talk about Candace Owens. But I will. A lot of people shared the video by Candace Owens with me and asking about my feedback, and I honestly couldn't get past 3 minutes, and I just gave kind of generic feedback that this is obviously someone pandering to their audience and they're off topic. But the last couple of people that messaged me specifically wanted me to do commentary on the video because they've been receiving a lot of people sharing it with them and kind of arguing with them, and they don't really know how to respond. And I'm all about educating. I don't like the fact that I'm giving her any kind of energy or time of day. I feel like if you want to listen to that, you will. I know a lot of people come to my content to get educated and to learn, and I always like to help people think through some of the things that they're hearing critically so that they can respond in a logical way. I like to help teach people how to not veer off topic, which is a really great technique that a lot of people who want to win arguments do, instead of actually using discourse, logic, information to come to reasonable conclusions. So this video is for anybody that's gotten that someone sent this video to you and they're saying, see, this Black person agrees with me and you need to as well. This is how you can respond to these talking points.
I have decided to do this video. It has been weighing very heavily on my heart and on my mind as well. And it was something that I wanted to say early on, but there were so many emotions and so much pressure, for me to go with the
I feel you, sis. There's a lot that went on these last 10 days. I would need some time to know what to say as well. I feel you. Come on now.
My silence would have been better in the beginning, but the more that I think about it, I realize that we are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the Black community, at the detriment to the white community, and at the detriment to America as a whole. So I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from.
Okay, so this is where in the video I was like, oh, I'm not gonna watch this. Like, she set up her thesis very quickly and it's already off topic. So I was already like, oh, this is a waste of time. You hear her bring up this argument of, I am not gonna support George Floyd and I'm not gonna support the media's depiction of him as a martyr. I guess my question is, who's questioning him, or, you know, where is she getting that information that people are calling him a martyr, other than her own impressions of how the media is covering him as a human? And maybe she thinks that it's not negative enough, but I don't think that's a claim anyone is trying to make.
I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black Americans breathing. Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell, and I recently came across something that was an idea that was planted into my head by Shelby Steele, and it has been something that
Okay, that, I don't know why that threw me off. She said an idea was planted in her head, because if anybody has watched Inception, that's not a good thing. But I know that's not what she means. I thought I'd have a little joke with you. Joke with me.
Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal, not every Black American is committing crimes, but we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good.
Okay, let's stop there. That's obviously a fallacy. She says that we're the only race that fights and screams for people that aren't worthy of it. She says that we are the only race that caters to the bottom denominators of our society. I don't know what that means to her, but That's obviously a fallacy. Anytime anyone ever says only, always, or never, it's, let's just really analyze what she means by that. I think it's interesting that she perceives advocacy for marginalized people in that way, and that she just sees it differently, and she's inspired by this Black author who's made this claim as well. But advocacy for disenfranchised or marginalized people is not a bad thing. And the fact that Blacks do that for just not our own community, but we oftentimes advocate for all people like that, is just kind of telling to how people perceive our advocacy work versus how she sees it, that we're feeding to the bottom denominator or the scums or the least of these, is how I'm internalizing what she's saying. Any rational person who is very versed on sociology and history, or not even versed, like just basic understanding of how systems work, would know that there are systems that are in play that have created populations of disenfranchised people. And when people are marginalized in society or disenfranchised, they oftentimes become criminals. So if they don't fit into the normal society's framework, they oftentimes do illegal practices to at least live. So the fact that she calls them people who are up to no good, as if they did it on purpose, is kind of interesting. And of course, some people just do bad things because they're terrible people. But there are large groups of people who ethically do bad things as a means of survival, and you can judge them. I mean, we literally have judges who judge them and put them away and give them sentences. But if it's an ethical question, we know that this is a moral question that a lot of people, that's studied, right? Like, it's the example I always use. Do you condemn a poor person who steals bread to feed their child? They should not do that, right? If it's illegal, obviously, and you don't take from others. But it's a question of morality, and it's an ethical question of what is reasonable. Do you literally starve your children because you don't fit in the regular framework of society, or do you just do what you have to do? And I'm not here to excuse away criminal behavior, but I'm here to say that there are populations and places in society that have had to deal with systems of oppression, things like redlining. People that are poor and don't fit the normal framework of society sometimes end up doing criminal activity. So for me to speak up for them is not to excuse their behavior in the way she says it. It's to speak up to the fact that we don't ignore them, that the systems that are in place need to be reconfigured to bring them back into the fold of society, so that everyone has basic human rights and the opportunity for growth within the society. I don't cater to anybody that's, first of all, I don't cater to nobody. I'll speak up for people that are forgotten. It's just interesting that she frames it that way. It's funny that she said Black people are the only ones that do this, and that's clearly not true. There's evidence of other races that do that. And in the same example that I used about pockets or populations of people that are disenfranchised, that are advocated for, white America does this for their own people too. I mean, for poor white Americans right now who are suffering from criminal activity with the drug market, white people are speaking up about fentanyl and methamphetamines and all of these drugs that are right now started to enter into suburban or poor white societies. And you have a lot of white people doing illegal activity, doing drugs, selling, procuring and using drugs, and there's been a lot of death rates. Absolutely, white people are, and you see it, they are treating this like a medical crisis, and this is very different from the ways in which African Americans who advocated for poor Black neighborhoods that were having drug problems as well, we were looked at or depicted as criminals. It was not a health crisis, and honestly, for the last 30-40 years, we were left to rot and die. White people, when they advocate for their drug crisis, have been treating it as a health issue. So and they are criminals, they are poor, they are, by her definition, what she said, people who are up to no good, the bottom denominators, if that's how she sees them, and not as actual people. So the fact that she says only black people do this is this is illogical. We only about 3 minutes. We a minute and a half. Child. Okay.
Hard pressed to find, a Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime, and that the Jewish people champion and demand justice for.
Okay, so that's also, this is hilarious. This is hilarious because yes, she's true. You don't see a lot of Jewish martyrs that are being thrust as symbols to represent any kind of to represent anything worth fighting for, I guess. But it's not because there aren't any, it's because they don't end up dead. And this is a demonstration of how white privilege really is different, how blacks literally die for nothing, and people that are racially white but ethnically Jewish or religiously Jewish live. And I'm saying this thinking about Woody Allen in my head. This man, although he has denied ever sleeping with his stepdaughter before she was 18, married her very young at age, and there's lots of evidence that demonstrate that they did have a sexual relationship when she was a child. And he didn't end up as a martyr because he didn't end up dead. You know what happened to him? He won awards. It's funny that she says that only we make criminals martyrs, and the point here is what I'm making is, well, of course they don't have martyrs because they don't end up dead. Jewish and white people that have misconduct either don't get caught or get slaps on the wrist, and they have power and money to manipulate the system in a way where they don't have to actually engage with the police officer in a brutal way. I also think this is interesting that she's making this connection with martyrs and how blacks like to use criminals as martyrs. And I think about how often white criminals are glorified in the media. So it's interesting that she says we're the only race that does that. But in reality, when you think about white Italian mob gangsters and how they've been glorified in media and looked up to and admired a lot, they have films made after them and movies made after them. And I mean, they're obviously no symbol for any fight for marginalization or disenfranchised or for human rights or civil rights. But my over analytical skills right now is making me think of the fact that white Americans, they glorify white criminals all the time too. So it's to say that only black people turn criminals into martyrs is a big statement to say. And obviously there are holes in that argument.
Pressed to find this in white America. You'll be hard pressed to find this even in Latino America. If there is a person that is spent multiple times in prison, you are not going to see a bunch of Latinos coming out demanding justice for this person, even if, and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any.
I'm so glad she brought up Latinos, and she said Latinos don't do this either. This is hilarious. And you can give me examples that I'm missing because I'm obviously reacting to this live, and I don't know, I'm not that versed in Latinx culture or history. But what I think about a nation in particular, when I think about Mexican immigrants, are so marginalized in society that they couldn't speak up if they wanted to. They literally have no voice to advocate on their behalf for the wrongdoings that are done to them right now. And if anyone was killed at the hands of police in an unethical way, or if anyone was charged with a crime, if they were disproportionately sentenced in comparison to their white counterparts, they don't have people to speak up on their behalf, and they don't have the ability to speak up because most of them are so marginalized that they're afraid of getting deported. So I'm glad she brought up the Hispanic or Latinx example, because that's a great example of marginalized people that need advocacy, because we know that they are met with crimes against humanity. They are mistreated and dehumanized by companies for high labor, low pay jobs, and pay into the tax system, but have no protections and don't have a pathway to citizenship, even though they are literally a part of the framework of our economics. And as a result, they are so marginalized that things happen to them that they have no one to speak up for and fight for on their behalf. And I'm sure that many Latinx or Hispanic people can give you examples of personal examples of how they've been mistreated by the police, but they don't speak up because a lot of them are afraid of losing their jobs or deportation. So thanks for that. That was a good example.
Defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept the narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer. For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals.
Whoa, that was a lot. That was a lot. Okay, first of all, she says, I think he deserves justice, but I'm not going to turn him into a martyr. And that is gaslighting at its peak. And I'm so glad that I used the term gaslighting for my last video, because now it's become a little thing on the internet, setting up trends here. But yeah, never accept any acknowledgement or apology that is coupled with a conjunction. So once you throw in a but or however, whatever you're going to say now is going to negate what you said before. So she says she believes George Floyd deserves justice, but I'm not going to hold him up as a martyr because he's a criminal. For being part of a political community that's so adamant about constitutional rights, you would think that they would be really upset that this person that was judged and sentenced on the spot by a police officer, so he never had the ability to use his constitutional rights to defend himself through the judicial system. So if he was a criminal, this isn't about his criminal past, and the fact that she's bringing that up to tarnish his name, it's disgusting and it's deplorable, because I don't care if he was a criminal, he didn't deserve to die that way. That's not how it works. So I think that for someone that's a part of that circle, you would think that they would see this. So this is the other part that was like, oh my gosh, you're saying so much, that Blacks deserve a better martyr. This is why this is so layered, because she's saying it but not really saying it. So in her argument then, if he was the person that should have died, our martyrs should be really innocent people. So it should have been like a priest, and then we could use him as a martyr. I think once you start showing that you start comparing life to life in terms of value, you are heading down a very slippery slope. So that there's that layer that's kind of like, that does not sit well. That is very disgusting. And then it's hilarious that she says that we shouldn't be holding criminals up as martyrs. And in the last week, Republican conservatives have been quoting a criminal like crazy. And people forget that the beloved Dr. King was a criminal. And he broke laws that he felt were unjust. I forget this man was a socialist. Y'all Republican people y'all out here quoting a socialist. So it's so funny that she's like, you shouldn't make criminals martyrs. It's literally, oh, Candace.
Over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight. And it is something that I find to be despicable, and it is something that I refuse to stand by any longer, and I'm not going to play a part in it no matter how.
And I also think that this is interesting, because it's like there's this dehumanization of people that have done criminal activity, and it's very unfair because Black people wear that burden much heavier than other races. And this is a part of the complex for some of us, it's like we have to be perfect because we know that there's no second chances in a Black life. Obviously, Black people aren't the only ones that are criminals. There are a lot of white colleagues I have that will admit to saying, I've always smoked marijuana, or yeah, I do coke every once in a while, or I've stolen before. You have white criminals that are in those spaces that embezzle money, and they went to jail for 5 years and came back and was able to work back in the financial sector again. It's just interesting how the way she's saying it to me feels like what I'm internalizing. She's not really saying it this way. I'm internalizing that she's specifically talking about Black criminals are really bad. But there's examples of criminals within every part of society, right? And so when I hear that, that makes me feel uncomfortable, because I know people see us, when we do something wrong, we should get the full extent of the punishment and no second chances. But I think about someone like I forgot his name, Brock or whatever, who literally raped a girl in a dumpster and was given the chance to not do real jail time. So there are a lot of safety nets in the criminal justice system to protect white crime, while black criminals either get killed before they even have a chance to go through the process, or are just looked upon as animals. And that's kind of how I'm receiving that, even though she's not saying that way, just because I know historically that's how others have seen black criminals.
How much pressure comes from black liberals and black conservatives as some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be black, is you have to say this was wrong and that this person was amazing. I won't do that.
No one's saying that, but okay, you don't have to.
Floyd was not an amazing person, and as soon as this video hit the internet, I
don't think anyone is saying he is an amazing person. No one is saying he's an amazing person. I mean, I don't know if he was. What has happened is he has become a symbol. It's not even a symbol. I mean, he's really just a tipping point. People are tired. So I don't know. This whole thing about, oh, he's a martyr and y'all are using him as a symbol and we can do better. Let's pick a different martyr that has better credentials. Let's look at all the dead people and look at their resume. This is like ridiculous. And he's not the only dead person either. We have Breonna Taylor, who's dead, and who would literally, if you're looking for a perfect martyr, that is the martyr. She has had no criminal activity, clean, squeaky clean background, and she is dead. Okay, so if you want to pick another one, pick one from the list of dead bodies. The only reason why he has become the face of the current movement happening is because within the last 10 days, we've had 3 significant instances. We had a man shot down in the street with shotguns by civilians. We have Amy Cooper calling the police on an African-American man that she was going to say that an African-American man was attacking her. And then we have George Floyd's video. And those 3 things, coupled with the fact that people have time, people got time today, sis. Listen, the pandemic done put people out of work. People got time to watch the news and read and really assess what's been going on. And so now people are like, you know what, bump this. I'm going out in the street and protesting. So it's been a cluster of things that's happened that has sparked a movement. Him in particular, George Floyd, is one of hundreds of Black and brown people who have died at the hands of police brutality. So I don't even have time to watch the rest. I am on minute 340. I'm looking at my camera. I have 40 minutes of footage right now that I'm gonna have to cut down because I didn't want this to be more than a 10-minute video. I don't have time to watch the rest of this and leave commentary. I don't have time. And the point I wanted to teach is she lost us from the start. She's already off topic. This isn't an argument about who George Floyd is and if we should be holding him up as a pillar. And this is a gaslighting technique to further distract you from the real issues of systematic oppression, the fact that our policing agencies have too many protections in place to protect police officers instead of serving the community, and there's no accountability. What she's talking about, if you sit there and watch 30 minutes of this, you're going to waste your time and you're going to get emotional and get hype and have all these things to say. What it does provide is for her, and this is what she's attempting to do in the video, is acknowledge that he should not have died that way, because she is even probably noticing that white and Black Americans and Republican and conservatives are agreeing that he should not have died this way, but she also still wants to pander to her political party. And that's the other thing that this is. This is a way to further politicize this issue, and it should not be a Republican or Democratic debate. This is a human rights violation, period. And there needs to be criminal justice reformation, period. Criminal justice reformation is a good thing for all people, no matter your race, your gender, or your political affiliation. There needs to be accountability for people that don't do their job well. If you can get fired as a doctor for malpractice for doing something bad and killing people for bad practices, that same level of accountability should also happen in our criminal justice system. So we need to break down this blue code of silence, this fraternal order, and we need to do a deep dive and clean up all that residual racist stuff that's still lingering from the KKK when they infiltrated our policing agencies. This is a great tactic to get you off topic. Don't buy into it. And the other point why I wanted to make this video was really to demonstrate how to respond to arguments, because now this video is being weaponized by people that want to maintain the order the way it is and sharing it out with people that think like them. So they're creating an echo chamber for people like them so that they can't learn and grow. And they're going to use it as a tactic to have an argument with you. So you'll get this in your inbox and you'll see a C, and then they'll start saying all the stuff she said, that he was a criminal too and all that. And you need to know how to stay on topic. There is no reason to bring up this man's criminal past, and you can state supporting evidence for that fact. And this is why your teachers were trying to teach you how to write argumentative papers in college and high school. We were teaching you critical thinking techniques. So when we had you state a clear statement and use supporting arguments to support your statement, that was a way to help you increase your critical thinking skills. So when a Candace comes to you in your face, you know how to keep on topic or how to dismantle her thesis, her argument. And if this was a paper, this video was a paper, it would be a D for trying, a D- for trying, because they had nothing to do with the topic. Why are we talking about this man? Why are we talking about martyrs? Who introduced that theme? If anything, I've heard he's another example of police brutality. Yet another one. I mean, she done introduce a whole nother thing nobody else has said. Anyone who wants to maintain the social order in terms of criminal justice, the criminal justice system, doesn't want George Floyd to be a martyr. And that could be Republican, Democrat, liberal, black, white, female or male, cisgender, transgender, part of the LGBTQ plus community, atheist or religious. There are some people that want to keep the status quo so that they don't have to actually do anything, or they don't have to create equity or share or whatever, or the system will no longer benefit their direct needs. So anyone like that doesn't want George Floyd to be a martyr, and they have used that word. People out here doing this work have never called him a martyr. None of us. If anything, we might have said he's a symbol, but that's even stretching it. We say, here's another example. He is another example. But, you know, people who want to maintain order are salty about that. So they're going to try to, whatever that is. So I'm sorry I could not finish this video. I'm tired of talking, and this is annoying. So I'm signing off. I don't know if that helped anybody. I hope it does.